I'm worried about voter confidence in the system. I want every voter in the state of Indiana to know that the vote that they cast will be counted and it won't be canceled out by someone committing fraud.
Depending upon when and where you're listening to this, Election Day is quickly approaching. There will be a large number of groups recommending that you register to vote, and this podcast is among them. The problem is, some of them want to keep you from voting by encouraging you to fill out fraudulent forms that may change your ability to vote and keep you from casting a ballot. Now, Season 3 of Scams and Cons begins in 2 weeks, but I thought it was worth a quick bonus episode to talk about voter registration fraud. This podcast is apolitical, and that's not changing. Who you vote for is none of my business. But when scammers step in to prevent you from casting a ballot, then it's time for us to raise a warning flag. To begin, it's important to recognize the difference between voter registration scams and voter scams. Voter registration scams are usually designed to change voting records. When you arrive at a poll, you may not be allowed to vote because records say you're ineligible. The poll workers are just doing their jobs to make sure the election is honest. They wouldn't be aware that anything is wrong. The information just doesn't check out. Usually there's a way for voters to cast a provisional ballot that's reviewed later to see if an error occurred or if fraud is involved. Voter fraud occurs when someone tries to vote when they are ineligible. For example, if I requested an absentee ballot for my dead uncle and I cast that vote, I'd be guilty of voter fraud, and that's not what we're talking about today. We're focused on voter registration. When that system works correctly, my dead uncle's name would have not been on the list, and I would not receive that absentee ballot. A voter registration scam can be as simple as a friendly person standing outside a grocery store asking if you've registered to vote. You may say yes, but they tell you it's a good idea to register again just to be sure all information is up to date. They say the folks at the election office will check this fresh data with what they have on file and make the appropriate updates. It sounds reasonable, but these people may be fishing for information about you and your house to steal your identity. It has nothing to do with voter registration. With so many voter registration tables set up around an area, it's easy for them to hide in plain sight. It can also be a political group who knows you regularly vote for one party, and they don't want you to do that. Florida provides a prime example. The Palm Beach State's Attorney's Office opened an investigation into a company that had been hired to register voters. This is a common practice used by all political parties because they have difficulties in attracting volunteers.
This afternoon, we spoke with Sid Dinerstein, chairman of the Palm Beach County Republican Party. He told us he was not aware that a national company called Strategic Allied Consultants was doing a voter registration drive for the Republican Party. Supervisor of Elections Susan Booker says her office received a stack of forms. An elections officer noticed the discrepancies while processing those forms. The 106 forms are now in the possession of the state attorney's office.
As the day moved on, WPTV learned more.
In this last hour, we received this statement from the Republican Party of Florida from Mike Garrison. He says, quote, when we learned today about the instances of potential voter registration fraud that occurred in Palm Beach County, we immediately informed the Republican National Committee that we were terminating the contract with the voter registration vendor we hired at their request. There was no place for voter registration fraud in Florida, end quote. The state attorney's office is not sure just how long the investigation would take place.
Depending upon the state where you live, these are the most common reasons voters are criminally denied the right to vote. Attempting to register when you're ineligible. registering as a non-existent person, which includes deceased persons, animals, or inanimate objects. Registering as a fictitious person, or trying to interfere with or withhold another person's registration card without that voter's consent. One of the most flagrant cases of voter registration fraud happened in Indiana in 2016. Employees of a voter registration group admitted they had fabricated or forged signatures of Indiana voters. The investigation eventually expanded from 2 counties to 9. Police said the fraud included a combination of fake names, addresses, and dates of birth with real information. Some 45,000 ballots were in question.
But court records show at least 3 employees said there was pressure to meet daily quotas of at least 10 registered voters. Another worker told police that her supervisor told her to do so, quote, by any means necessary. State police say they were tipped off by the Hendricks County clerk, who says she noticed forms where signatures didn't match up. A spokesman for the Indiana Voter Registration Project's parent company, Patriot Majority USA, released a statement that said, in part, most of the canvassers mentioned in these warrants were fired, let go, not called back, or quit before the state police became involved in this matter.
That was from WLFI. To be upfront with you, I've worked as part of voter registration campaigns, and from time to time workers would make mistakes on the forms, and we had to throw them away. People make mistakes, but measures are needed to catch them and ensure they don't keep someone from voting. All of this is not to scare you away from people who legitimately want to help you register to vote. Here's a spokesperson for Caltech explaining what they found in their research on voter registration fraud.
The Caltech-MIT Voting Technology Project uses sophisticated algorithms to check for and prevent fraud in voter rolls. Election officials in Los Angeles and Orange counties supply daily snapshots of voter registration lists via a secure data pipeline. Algorithms monitor changes over time and determine which are statistically anomalous. Election officials can then investigate those cases. Are they due to hacking or fraud? Or instead, are they the result of database maintenance or clerical error? So far, each anomalous registration the algorithm has flagged has turned out to be the result of administrative changes, not intentional fraud. Researchers hope these algorithms can be used nationally to ensure voter registration records are accurate and secure.
So when it comes time to vote, we at Scams and Cons encourage you to cast your ballot. But well before Election Day, take time to be sure your voter registration information is accurate. Your local election officials can help you with that.
A successful con seduces a sucker into a world where their dreams can come true. Power and great riches are within their grasp. This magic casts a spell that leads its audience to hand over all their money to scammers who vanish before the sucker realizes it was all an illusion. If you enjoy the podcast, please help us out by telling your friends and encouraging them to listen. Scams and Cons is available wherever podcasts are found and at scamsandcons.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Scams and Cons. Lastly, if you could head over to Spotify and leave us a 5-star rating, it'd be really appreciated. Spotify listeners are more than half our audience, so it makes a difference. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.